Well, since you all are clearly eager and ready to roll, we will do just that. And I want to say a warm welcome from Lewiston, Maine. I am on campus as we speak or as we meet virtually. My name is Leigh Weisenberger, and I'm VP for Enrollment and Dean of Admission and Financial Aid at the college. And on behalf of all of my colleagues in admission and student financial services, want to give you a warm welcome, but a big, big congratulations on being admitted to the Bates class of 2025. This is certainly a thrilling time, and we are really, really just pleased to be with you all for this next hour. Before we get into exactly all that we have planned to share with you and what we hope to discuss with you, I want to just outline a few logistics so you all understand the format of the webinar and know what is ahead. So at the bottom of your screen, hopefully many of you are already familiar with this tool, but there is a Q&A feature, so please use that freely. I will share just a few welcoming remarks to help you celebrate all of your accomplishments where we've rounded out the admission year. And then I will quickly turn the program over to President Spencer, Clayton, as you should call her, who has some thoughts that she would like to share with you all. But while we recognize this is clearly virtual in a webinar format, our hope and aim is really to try and make this as conversational as best we possibly can. So please, any and all questions, any and all thoughts, send them our way. Our close colleague, my close colleague, Daryl Uwe, our Director of Admission, is proudly joining us as well. So he's here to help with the Q&A, but also to chime in and answer his 2 cents. So please, anything and everything, we'd love to hear what's on your minds. So again, Leigh Weisenberger, congratulations, welcome. You should all be very, very proud where this was another selective year in the admission office, but hopefully you all recognize fully that you are well beyond the numbers, well beyond all of those statistics, and to think about the fact that we in admission, we in student financial services have been waiting quite a while to actually connect with you all. We know that you too waited a good 3+ months to hear from us, and that moment has come where you've gotten the great news. Many of you here with us right now also were early decision students, so you've known for a while that Bates is your home for next fall, but this is the time for you all to connect, though virtually, to get to know some of your future classmates, potentially your future roommates, your fellow research partners, what have you. So it's just an exciting time. We have over 200 students who registered for today's program from across the globe, truly. I can say that California and New York showed up as the states today, not to pit any 2 states against one another, but just some healthy competition, the 2 states that showed up fully, but truly we have students from across the globe here. And we're having this program as the kickoff to what is a series of events over the next 6 weeks. So that is really thrilling. Many of you have already joined what is the Den. If you haven't done so already, please do so after this program. That is a platform where anything and everything tied to admitted student activities will take place over the next 6 weeks. It's an opportunity for you to connect with one another as much as it's an opportunity for you to connect with current Bates students, current faculty, staff, even alumni. All of that is happening there. And you'll see that there's on average about 3 events that are taking place each week as we lead up to May 1. Ideally, they're at good times of day so that if you have practice or rehearsal or you're doing some homework, you can also take part in an hour of good Bates fun and collecting all the knowledge you need to make your Bates decision. And you'll find all of that on the Den. For families, there's a great hub for you as well on Facebook. You should have received a prompt from our office last week on Tuesday or Wednesday, and there is an invitation for you to join the Families of Class of 2025 Facebook group. So families, that's your space to connect with one another, connect with Bates staff there who can guide you through various things that you might have questions about. As much as you are welcome to join your student in some of the events that they might partake in through the Den. So this is your time. As much as we're thinking about September and we all recognize that this is continuing to be new times where we're doing everything virtually, and in an ideal world, we would have had you on campus. It was a classic Maine spring day where we saw students out and about on campus, going to Dairy Joy, which is the favorite ice cream place just down the road. But that time will come. That time will come when we all can be together safely and happily in the fall. So in the meantime, thrilled to have you here. I'm going to turn it over to Clayton, who will give her warm welcome, but I'll say one more time, congratulations from all of us in admissions, student financial services, but truly across the college and our alums across the globe. You did this, you deserve it, and we're really, really thrilled for you, and most hopeful we'll see you in September. So with that, I'll turn it over to Clayton. She is our 8th president. I think you'll find her to be wonderfully open, welcoming, as much as she's also wildly brilliant and tons of fun. As a president, for students who are with us right now, I think you'll see that she's the type of president who's out and about on campus during ordinary times, which hopefully aren't too far away, in Commons, having her lunch, getting to know you. She was at a basketball game this afternoon, so she's totally accessible, somebody on the ground who wants to know you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Clayton.
Thank you, Leigh. And let me add my congratulations and welcome to admitted members of the class of 2025. And I also want to welcome parents, friends, and others who are sneaking a peek tonight on this call. It's wonderful to have all of you here, and really, really lovely to see just the numbers of participants we've got. It's fantastic. So as Leigh said, I think we all would normally be just so energized to be greeting you in person on campus and letting you walk around and kind of kick the tires a little more literally than you can on Zoom. But I've also been thinking, we've all been living in an over-Zoomed universe probably for a full year. But one thing is, with the set of events that Leigh and her team have organized, and Daryl, who's also on the call, I feel like you're going to have lots of opportunities to really get a feel for the place and see which stories seem to hang together, have information really at your fingertips, and be exposed to lots of different aspects of Bates. So maybe it takes a little of the pressure off of, like, am I feeling the vibe on this day? So anyway, I know this is a year, 2020, and leaking a little more than we'd like into 2021 that we'd all like to see in the rearview mirror, together with COVID. And I'm quite optimistic, given where Maine has been the whole time. We've very successfully had our full complement of students on campus all year. We've indeed had record enrollments because our juniors couldn't do study abroad, which 60% of Bates students do. So they were back on campus. Some people either couldn't make it back from international spots or had reasons they preferred to study remotely, but we had a completely full campus and have managed it with a lot of hard work, but a lot of amazing cooperation from students, but also a lot of success. So it's only going to get better as those vaccines roll out and get in arms. So we hope to be welcoming you back to a semester in the fall that looks a lot more like pre-COVID than this year. So you're probably on this webinar tonight because you have a big choice to make. And I'm sure you have fabulous choices, because you guys are an amazing group. As Leigh said, it was a very competitive year in admissions. We've had just a series of highly competitive years. And I just want to tell you that we've already made our choice. We made our choice of who we thought would come to Bates, love it, thrive, and all of you are on that list. So we've chosen you, and we've chosen you for your incredible range of talents and accomplishments, for your ambition and your curiosity. I know many of you are already kind of in the process of figuring exactly out how you're going to change the world. So we know, because Leigh's been doing this admissions thing and has Daryl for probably greater than 30 years combined, neither of them 30 years alone. They are as young as they look. But they know how to read applications, and we know that you would succeed at Bates. So I want you to think of our offer of admission as a huge vote of confidence in you and what we're thrilled to have you bring to Bates. And it's a promise that we think you would get a lot out of Bates. But it's your job to choose us back. And we'd like you to choose us back. But and there's nothing more than I would personally like than to be standing in the historic quad late August, early September. We're nailing all of that down as we sort out the next semester. Nothing I would like more to see all of your faces, which I can't see tonight. You can see us, we can't see you. We'd love to have you choose us back, but only if it feels right. This is an important decision for you guys. You got to figure out which college feels like the right choice for you. So it's hard in life, even when you face amazing, wonderful choices, to figure out, how am I supposed to know what feels right? And this year it has particular challenges because it's really, you haven't had the same kind of exposure to campus and picking up all those intangibles and kind of feeling the vibe. So let me just suggest ways you might want to think about this. One thing we teach at liberal arts colleges is for students, faculty, everybody to make connections among subject matter, make connections among types of information, take in information from all sources, from many directions, and bring it together and make a judgment and see if it feels right in your gut. And when I say take in information, it's not just the obvious stuff like what's the curriculum, how many extracurriculars do they have, etc. It's also emotional information. How far do I want to be from home when I go to college? Does the state of Maine and its kind of gorgeous natural beauty and slightly exotic place in the United States and in my own imaginative universe. I chose to come to Bates 9 years ago, by the way, and I'm going to share with you some of the reasons I did that. But a big one was Maine because it's pretty wonderful. So that's a geographic choice. It's an emotional choice. Do you feel like you can find your peeps here? Are you going to be able to feel comfortable, fit in, and find your friends? Because that's really a huge part of what college is all about. So take that all in, and then at the end of your processing, or at the beginning, some people just go quickly and know exactly what they want to do. We love those of you who do that too. But just be empirical in your analysis, i.e., consider the facts in front of you, and then figure out if Bates seems to make sense to you. So in order to help you do that, let me tell you a few things that I noticed about Bates when I was coming here 9 wonderful years ago. And it really was one of the most fun decisions and adventures of my increasingly depressingly long life. But one of the first things I noticed was the really authentic and down-to-earth student culture at Bates. This is not a culture of competition and I'm going to optimize for myself. It's a very collective culture. We've never had sororities or fraternities in the history of Bates, because why would you invite people to come to a campus and be together and make friends and then start making decisions about who's in what club and who isn't? So that's just an example. Another sort of important symbol of our culture is commons. For any of you who have been here or maybe have siblings or friends who've been here, you know that we all eat in one dining room. And I said we because I tend to eat lunch there when in pre-COVID times when you could do that. And literally, there's one kid I see every time I go in there, no matter if I'm going in at 11:30 or 1:30, and I finally decided he just sets up shop at about 10 in the morning, and he doesn't leave till they close it briefly to clean at about 2. And so people come together. The food is fantastic. You can look us up in Niche. We've got, like, we're one of the top wonderful food, and we do tons of locally sourced food. And it's wonderful. We have every variety known to humanity and a fabulous head of dining. Another thing that I noticed about the Bates culture is it's not a culture where you already have to be an expert or a virtuoso to participate in something. If there's music at every level here, in the Range, a coffee house, there's Village, wait a minute, Leigh, Village Voices? Wait, what is it? The Village, the music venue. I forget the name. It's Village something or other, where you could just
Village
come to
series.
what? Village Club Series?
I could only think of the acronym VCS.
Yeah, Village Club Series, where you come, no matter how proficient you are, you play your music. It's kind of coffee house, etc. A student last year was in a play, and I saw him, and I said, "Oh my gosh, he had a leading role." I said, "Have you been doing theater all your life?" He goes, "No. I just kind of stumbled into theater here when I was a junior, and I love it. I think I might go professional." So Bates is the kind of place that you don't have to have played, the cello in Carnegie Hall when you were 7 in order to be in the orchestra here. It's great. And then, as I've mentioned, Maine is a great state to explore. It's basically 45 minutes to one of the most beautiful coastlines in the world, the Granite Coast of the North Atlantic. And it's about 45 minutes to a great ski area. And it's only 15 minutes to a kind of funky little ski area in the next town. The next thing I noticed about Bates is that the academic culture is serious. You go deep here. And one example of that is every student writes a thesis or completes a capstone project, which might be a group project in certain disciplines, or it may be a choice between a thesis or a capstone. But nearly 90% of our students write theses in their major. And I just want to give you one very cool example. So we have a young assistant professor named Andrew Kennedy, who's a biochemist. And that means you synthesize molecules in your lab. You don't ask me very deep questions about this because I'm hanging on by my fingernails here. But anyway, Andrew Kennedy and the students working with him on research synthesized a molecule that is now known in the world as Bobcat 339. Now, Bobcat, obviously the Bates mascot. The number 3, it was the third of 4 students who had the recipe for this module copied out in her lab notebook. In other words, she was present at the creation. So that's 3 and then 39, the page in her lab book. And this molecule is already submitted for patent because it has potentially very interesting pharmaceutical applications. What Andrew Kennedy does is study epigenetics, which means we've all got genes, the whole genome in all of our genes. What turns certain genes on and off? What makes a gene decide it's going to be a brain tissue versus liver or whatever? So they're looking at what turns genes on and off. And this molecule that they found has potential applications in preventing memory loss and preventing the spread of cancer. So this was a case where I think a lot of students are surprised that we would have science at that level at a liberal arts college. And I just want you to know this. If you're at a big university, you know you're going to have big science, but you're also going to have graduate students, postdoctoral students, lab assistants ahead of you in line. If you're at Bates, our faculty all came from those big science programs, and they are very competitive nationally for grants, which is what Andrew Kennedy had. And so if you're at Bates, you get to work directly with the faculty, and the same kinds of experiences are true in theater, in film, etc. So it's a very serious academic culture. The teaching is fabulous. You really get to know your professors. We have a relatively new program in digital and computational studies, so that we not only teach computer science and all the basics of programming, but also the linkages of computational studies to the hard scientists. Think about genetics. The throughput of the human genome requires massive computation. So you've got to have that. Physics is all about equations. You've got to have the computation, but also the social sciences. Economics, not just statistics anymore, much more computational. So if you plan to go into grad school, you better have some exposure to that. So we have a very down to earth and cool student culture. I love the students here. I constantly, if you walk by me on the path, I will stop you. I will ask you your name. I will not remember it the next time I see you because my deteriorating brain is up against 2,000 names. But I will remember that where your hometown is, what you're working on, who your thesis advisor is, and I love it. So another thing that I think you might want to know about Bates is a program that wasn't here before I came, but it's near and dear to my heart. It's called Purposeful Work. And it is a very innovative program that we have put together to embed the liberal arts with thinking about life after college, both life and work, not in an instrumental way, but in a fundamental way. So what is purposeful work? It's not a particular kind of work. It's not, I mean, you can be doing purposeful work. It's purposeful work that has meaning for you. So you could be a ballerina, you could be a forest ranger, you could be an investment banker, you could be Dr. Fauci. He's clearly doing purposeful work. And all it means is that the work you choose to do is aligned with your values, interests, and talents. And you figure that out through a process of sort of trial and error. So we have purposeful work infused into the curriculum. A professor can choose to be teaching a course and bring a purposeful work element in. For instance, we have a French and Francophone studies professor who's very interested in French-speaking countries in Africa. And we have a lot of immigrants in Lewiston from French-speaking countries in Africa. So in order to make vivid what this professor was talking about and give the students language practice, they got involved in working in internships with the immigrant services in Lewiston. And that's an example of how purposeful work can be part of what you're studying. It's the wonderful cycle of learning something, applying it to something tangible and real in life, and then you kind of enrich what you understand about it. And it's a fabulous way to learn. We also have a lot of community engaged work, which has the same basic feel of classroom learning, theoretical structures, then you do the work. Maybe you're teaching in a school in Lewiston, maybe you're working in one of the local hospitals on nutrition, and then you bring it back to the classroom and it enriches your understanding and you keep going. So all of these things I mentioned, our campus culture, the academic seriousness, and purposeful work are things you can really examine. You can go on the web and read about them, see what they involve. But what I like about Bates is something more fundamental. I have my own little private kind of motto, mission statement for Bates, which came from E.E. Cummings. I don't know if you still read E.E. Cummings these days. In my generation, E.E. Cummings was the poet who everything is in lowercase letters. But he is once said, it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. To me, that's a definition of what education is all about. Our job is to work with you to figure out how to unlock your deepest interests and gifts and grow up to be authentically you. We give you a lot of space for that on the Bates campus. It is one of the things that makes me so proud to be associated with Bates. We're not just cranking out particular kinds of people. It's a very expansive community with lots of individuals. And some of the things students do are totally crazy in my book, but it's a wonderful field. So there are a lot of substantive reasons you might want to come to Bates, but ultimately it's for you to decide. And I hope you'll use the next period of days, however many you need, or weeks if you need more, and really think these things through. Feel free to write me. I've got an account called president@bates.edu. You can write me and ask me any questions or press me on something I might have said. And then I hope to see all of you turned in magically on our historic quad next fall, turned from admission statistics or webinar participants whose faces I can't see to the beautiful, shining class of 2025. So thanks. Leigh, I'll turn it back to you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Clayton, for all that you shared and did so with gusto. So hopefully that resonated with those of you with us today. Just for logistics here, we've had an active Q&A while Clayton was talking. So thank you to Daryl for answering many of those questions, but I see we're sitting at 18 still. So Clayton, we got our work cut out for us.
Okay.
A lot of hot topics to cover here. So please ask those questions. There are some that are relatively similar, so I'll do my best to try to pull themes together, and we'll answer those as robustly as we possibly can. But please keep the questions in Q&A, and if you haven't done so already, go to where some of the questions have already been answered, and you'll see Daryl is doing a fantastic job giving a bevy of information there. So one that I'll actually start with just sort of thematically to pull things together, and Clayton was finishing essentially on this note, and maybe I'll just add a few highlights. Maybe Clayton wishes to illuminate more, but Sadie had asked a question about wanting to know more about life off campus in Lewiston and how students interact with the community. Daryl, again, there did a fantastic job. And then Kevin also asked a similar question: how do Bates students interact with the town of Lewiston? So I think Clayton did a wonderful job painting the picture in terms of purposeful work, also alluding to what is our Harvard Center for Community Partnerships, where our students interact through educational projects that they might have. So it's work that's tied to work they're doing in the classroom and then work that they're doing in the community. So those are a couple of educational ways in which our students interact with the community, and we could go on and on there, but also just imagining you're curious socially, what is it like to interact with Lewiston? So to know, I understand many of you have not had the chance to visit campus, but the campus itself is very permeable. So we're not gated, we're not up on a hill removed from town or off on a side street. We're very much in the town of or the city of Lewiston. And I use those somewhat interchangeably just to put out there. For Maine, Lewiston is the second largest city in the state of Maine. But for those of you that are from LA, Los Angeles, or Chicago, or Taipei, you would say, really, this is a city? So it's a small town, a relatively residential area, but between the city of Lewiston and the city of Auburn across the river, about 65,000 plus folks live in this area. And our students can come and go from campus as much as pre-COVID times, and hopefully again, not in the near to distant future, families from the area will come and go from campus, so that it would be very common to see a little kid riding their bike on the quad, or a family at a dance performance or a lacrosse game, what have you. But right in town, about, I'd say, a 6-block walk. So, it's not New York, but for those of you that are used to cities, you would think nothing of it. You could easily walk downtown to what is Lisbon Street. And there's a favorite spot that our students frequent called Forage, where you can grab a bagel and coffee and pastries and all of that good stuff. And then there's a good number of restaurants. There's a couple popular ones, I'd say, for our students. Mother India is right there. Orchid, which has Asian fusion. There's a big hamburger place, if that's your thing, as much as there's a big Italian restaurant, Da Vinci's. It's in an old mill, so you get to see the history of the town there. So not to say our students strictly go into town to eat, but that's certainly a big thing in terms of socialization. And then nearby, across the river in Auburn, for your convenience, we have a lot of our big box stores, for lack of a better phrase. So you could go to Walmart if you need to do so, TJ Maxx, what have you, and get whatever goods you might need. I understand Target is coming in the next year or so, so don't hold me to that, but that'll be an attraction. Yeah, big news, Clayton.
No, that is big news.
So anyway, so that's some of what you could do locally. And then Clayton alluded to earlier, just I think many of us choose to live in Maine for very intentional reasons, choose to be a part of the Bates community, whether it's as a student or a faculty or staff member, because we love to be outside. Now, not everybody is an avid outdoors person, but you certainly have that to take care of as much, or to take advantage of, as much as I think Maine is also a real artisan community. As you get coastal, as you get into Portland. So there really is a lot to keep you entertained. And our students, I think, do a good job of balancing what's on campus, which could keep them busy 24/7, and making sure that Lewiston and Maine broadly are a part of their experience. Anything you'd add to that, Clayton?
I think you covered it, Leigh. I mean, I think we're good on that.
Great. So I am going to try and bundle a few here, Clayton, and kick it to you. So a lot of folks are curious to know about next year's academic calendar, what it might look like, when it'll be posted, what orientation might be. I answered, at least in the chat, that we anticipate students will need to be on campus towards the end of August, so the precise date is TBD. But if you could just speak broadly about how we're thinking about next year's academic calendar, please.
Sure. So for students and parents, normally we have calendar dates set multiple years in advance, but because of COVID, we've basically had to plan. This year we planned first semester, then actually changed the calendar to make sure people had a long break over the worst part of the surges of COVID, and then came back later than usual, mid-February, to go all the way to the end of May to complete this year. And so what we're doing now is looking very hard at the likely conditions in regarding the pandemic. Hopefully it will be mostly in the rearview mirror by next year, but it won't be completely. So what we're doing right now is planning for the most normal and robust semester that that pandemic conditions and public health restrictions will allow. So what we have been teaching this year in modules, 2 courses at a time. The semester's been divided. The 4-course semester that usually goes, the first one goes September through early December. We divided into 2 modules of 2 courses each, because some students were taking classes remotely, and we were concerned about having enough space to socially distance on campus. And for remote students, having 2 classes versus 4 was a big help. But we're very much trying at the moment to get back to a regular semester, which I think is the overwhelming preference of both our students and our faculty. And to do that, we're having to figure out, what if we, for some reason, because of a later surge in the pandemic or the persistence of it, we're required to still have 6-foot distancing. So we're right now going through a detailed analysis of how we build the class schedule to allow us to have semesters and comply with 6-foot distancing. If it's 3-foot distancing, it's easy. And if it's no distancing required, it's very easy. One thing I would say, we have a great relationship with the Maine CDC, and we have a terrific head of the CDC in Maine called Nirav Shah. He's our own kind of private version of Dr. Fauci. And I think most people believe that we will need to be masked in the fall, but not observing many of the other kinds of restrictions, particularly if a large segment of our community is vaccinated. And I noticed in the questions that there are questions about requirements to vaccinate, et cetera. We are going to extremely strongly urge everybody in our community to get vaccinated. But because the vaccines are under emergency authorization now, you actually can't, under most state laws, require them. It's being litigated in certain states. So we will be on a strategy of making it very easy. We're working with our employees so that they can register to get vaccines now. If the state of Maine makes vaccines available to our students, we will work with them to get them vaccinated while they're here. Certainly, we'd expect they could get vaccinated over the summer. So all that is a long way to say we're not quite there yet on the academic calendar. We expect to be, I would say, by mid-April, and I apologize for the delay. It's just that we need to kind of cross all our I's and our T's and dot our I's to bring it off. And I can answer other questions about how we're thinking about the fall for anybody who's interested.
Thank you, Clayton. So maybe I'll piggyback and answer a few of the questions regarding orientation and Aesop. I'll encourage students again to please join the Den. That again is the online platform where you can connect with one another, but there a number of our colleagues from campus life and student affairs are present, and they're the precise folks who make all of the planning or do all of the plans and make orientation and Aesop happen. So a little bit along the theme of what Clayton said, we're hoping for the best, but also planning, knowing that we'll have many of the same guidelines and restrictions for everyone's health and safety in place for the fall. So exactly what orientation will look like has yet to be fully determined. Though we did a fantastic job of doing much of the programming, if not all of the programming, virtually last year, with some limited interaction on campus outside, of course, safely. And so imagine that we certainly could return to that and do as much virtually, but we're really hopeful we can do more in person with regards to orientation in the fall. As for Aesop, some of you may or may not be familiar with what Aesop is. That's our annual entering student outdoor program or orientation program, excuse me. And so these are opportunities for our students to do what might be considered sort of pre-orientation trips. And it's a mixed bag. Some are your intense outdoor experiences where others might be located locally and you engage with the Lewiston community, perhaps doing volunteer work or other such activities. So Aesop, I am not aware of exactly the shape that is likely to take, but is underway in terms of considering alongside orientation. Clayton, I don't know if you'd add any detail to that.
I just want to add one philosophical wrapper to this. So as I mentioned earlier, we allowed whoever wanted to come back this year to come back. And the overwhelming majority of our students did. We had over 1,800 students on campus in the fall. We have almost 1,700 now. And recently, as the restrictions have started to be loosened a little bit, as we're past what seemed to be the worst of the surges, but still need to be cautious about the variants where every state is struggling to figure that out. Our goal has been to bring as much of the student experience back online as possible. So for instance, we're having a modified athletic season this spring. Leigh mentioned that I was at a basketball game this afternoon because I love basketball, and we didn't have a season in the winter. And when we were able to think about a spring season, the athletic department basically said to this was the women's basketball coach who happened to be playing today, or the women's team. They went to her and said, would you guys like to, if we can put together a few games, even though it's completely out of season. So our goal will be, we've been, I would say, COVID, very observant and careful of public health restrictions, but we recognize that they provide layers of safety. We have had remarkable control over COVID on our campus with an extremely robust testing program. And we will continue to push for as authentic an experience as is possible in September. We just can't pinpoint everything that will be possible.
So Clayton, you did a fabulous job laying that out. I know some folks are coming and going a little bit here, so there was just a clarifying question. So are we planning to do a full in-person or half and half or full online for fall of 2021?
So we are working on that now, and we're meeting with the various groups to make those decisions over the next 10 days. So our goal would be to have the full in-person experience if it's possible to do that. And we plan for the hardest goal, and then we can drop back from there if forced to. But our goal is to have the full residential experience available, probably with masks and probably with certain restrictions. We keep getting advised that it's not an on-off switch, but then the rate of vaccinations, the supply and the rate have greatly increased in this country. So we're optimistic, cautiously optimistic.
And I'll just add to that person's clarifying question. For this year, we had the option for our students to be fully in person, learning on campus, which the vast majority took advantage of. And then students could choose to learn remotely from their homes, where we had about 150 to 200 students. It switched a little bit per semester, where students chose to learn remotely. But as Clayton said, we had our highest enrollment on campus this year, where study abroad was not an option, but also we saw a real eagerness for students to be in connection with one another, in classrooms with one another. And given our robust testing program and our students really adhering to all of the protocols, we got through, and we are continuing to have a healthy semester, a second semester here at the college. So there's a lot of questions. Again, I'm going to try and bundle them, but one, Clayton, you and I can perhaps answer this in tandem. A student, I believe, remarked on your comment, finding your peeps or finding their peeps on campus. And so would you comment on what you think it's like for an Asian American girl to journey through Bates? They're a bit worried about the low level of diversity among the students and faculty. So thank you. And maybe I can just speak a little bit in terms of
students.
Students first, and Clayton, if you want to share anything more. So really want to say thank you to the student for asking this question. So our campus population, in terms of how students identify racially currently, is about 25% domestic students of color. We then have another 8% of our students who identify as non-US citizens. How they identify exactly racially could be a myriad of ways there. But as we think about our student population, yes, majority white, however, a sizable population that identifies as BIPOC, and another sizable population that are non-US citizens. And so while definitely recognize we have a lot of work to do in terms of racial diversity on campus, it's something we're striving towards with real intentional sort of earnestness. And this year's admitted class, of which you're a part, is the most diverse class racially that we've admitted in recent years to the college. So overall, when we think about early decision and regular decision, it's just over 37% BIPOC in terms of the students that we've admitted, and really celebrating all backgrounds that our students bring to campus, whether they be BIPOC or first generation to college or another identity. We also have really sought to diversify the community geographically, so that for many years now we've been majority non-New England, so majority out of region, which we also think adds to the campus community there. So in terms of the experience, while I can't speak to that same lived experience, we have what's called the Office of Intercultural Education on campus, which works closely with our campus life and student affairs team to coordinate all affinity groups on campus. So there's ample programming that the college really puts forward, as much as there are affinity groups that are student run. So there's Shanghai Asia, there's Latinos Unidos, there's our BSU, as much as all LGBTQIA+ programming occurs through the OIE. So that's a lot of the programming. But then also, as we think about our students overall, regardless of one's racial identity, our students on average do close to 5 activities outside of the classroom. They might not happen every day or every semester, but we think about that in terms of how students find connection, find community with one another there. So I'll pause, see if Clayton wishes to add anything.
I would just like to jump in because this student had a particular question about faculty, and I just want to say that we have about 175 faculty on the tenure and tenure track. And what's been happening in the last 4 or 5 years is we've seen sort of a generational retirement of faculty. So in our most recent cohorts of faculty hires on the tenure track in 2015, 50% of those hires were BIPOC faculty. The next year it was 60%. This past year it was 67%. So those new faculty added each year are remarkably diverse, including a wide range, sort of the full range that Leigh mentioned in terms of racial and ethnic identification. And so what you will see is the denominator is still got people that are above them and the ladder, but as the senior tenured faculty retire, you're seeing an amazing change in the composition of the faculty as new faculty come in.
Great, and I'll just add, for the student who did ask the question, if you wanted to contact me or contact anybody in the Office of Admission or others who might have similar questions as you're trying to imagine yourself on campus at Bates, in Lewiston, in Maine, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. But hopefully you'll also find some connection with one another and some of our current students who could speak to what their lived experience is. We've had a couple of questions. I know I'm kind of moving quickly here about admission statistics, and just because I alluded to a bit of the composition of the class that we've admitted, I'll share a few more. And then Clayton, we're going to turn back to what campus might be like next year, where we have some questions about roommates and housing and whatnot. Yeah. So in terms of the statistics for this year, we had technically our 4th largest applicant pool in the history of the college. So just over 7,300 applicants to Bates, which was thrilling. Our overall admission rate, or our admit rate, was 17% when you combine early decision and regular decision. So one of our most selective years in admission. You heard me speak earlier to the BIPOC population. So we admitted a record number of BIPOC students to the college, as well as making real headway out of region and with students who are first in their families to attend college. We've awarded over 10 million 10.3 million to be precise, in need-based financial aid, which is also really exciting. We admitted students from 48 states and over 40 countries. We tend to see a great showing when we get outside of New England and the California region, if you will, up and down the West Coast, and then certainly the Chicago area down into Colorado, Florida, Georgia, up the Carolinas to the Mid-Atlantic and New York. So know that you're represented well, all of you there. And in terms of nations outside of the US, truly across the continents there. And we on campus tend to have 60 plus countries represented in our student body. So that's also representative of the pool. Beyond that, all of the statistics will be available later this summer once we fully enroll the class. But academically, certainly one of the strongest pools we've had, one of the strongest admitted groups we've had, and also, again, just really diverse across the board geographically and identity-wise. So I'm glad you're curious to know who you are and who your future classmates are, and really eager for you to connect with one another. So Clayton, a couple of questions about roommates that I think I can answer here. So students, you do not choose your roommate. However, you will fill out a really lengthy, I say lengthy, but maybe more inquisitive is probably the better way to put it, survey asking you your likes, dislikes, your habits. Be brutally honest on this survey. I say this lovingly to families in the crowd. This is the time to let your student fill this out on their own so they can be honest about their sleep habits, eating habits, what have you. And then our housing, our Res Life program, our residential life colleagues do a fabulous job of teaming you up with roommates. So your first year, very likely you will have a roommate. There are a few exceptions any given year where students across the classes have singles, but really we have a robust housing program and our students really see a lot of value with roommates. Clayton, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add in terms of
I would just like to clarify one thing.
Sure.
Bates gets to take its hand at putting roommates together based on your questionnaires freshman year. And after that, you pick your roommates based on who you've gotten to know, and then you go through the housing lottery together. So we're not going to be making those choices for you except in freshman year, because we want to actually you know, a lot of people wouldn't know as much as we do about some of the other people in the class. So we want to make sure that I think we do a good job of putting roommates together and freshman year, and then you're kind of on your own after that.
Thank you, Clayton. So we have a couple of questions about some educational programs that maybe you could speak to, Clayton, or we could speak to together.
Yeah.
So a student interested in environmental studies and
Yeah.
curious about how COVID restrictions might affect field research or purposeful work more broadly.
Yeah. So let me start with that one. So being able to allow people to go in vans with windows open, socially distanced now and get some field research started. That's one of the kinds of things that we're trying to bring back online. And I mean, unless the fall is materially more difficult than either the public health experts predict or that we're given to believe, I think those kinds of trips will happen. They're outdoors where transmissibility is least a problem. Masking gives you lots of protection, and it's just a matter of working out transportation that is, you don't want to be in a closed car sitting shoulder to shoulder if the pandemic is still an issue. But I definitely think that's not we will definitely be doing it if it's at all possible. We'll put a lot of energy into bringing those back online.
Great, thank you, Clayton. So a couple of questions about travel that I can quickly tick off here. So the options for transportation, is there a campus shuttle? Do students bring their cars? Students are certainly welcome to bring their cars. First year students are welcome to bring their cars, though know that parking passes on campus are restricted, and there are more opportunities as you move up in your years at Bates, but there's ample parking, there's street parking. Some students might not get a parking pass to be in one of the lots on campus. However, you can park on the street freely until early to mid-November. And then sometimes students will find a place elsewhere in town to park their car or bring their car home and then bring it back in the spring once the parking opens up again. That's all for the measures in terms of snow clearing and whatnot, just the reality of being in Maine. Another question just related to orientation, just so Clayton and I can close that loop there, but athletes arriving before the rest of the incoming first year class, that is to be determined as well as we think about what the fall will look like, what athletics will look like for Bates, what it could look like for NESCAC, our athletic conference. So stay tuned there. So then Clayton, maybe one that we could answer together, but thinking about purposeful work, has anyone interned for a local politician? And maybe we could speak to that and then speak to some other local internship opportunities.
Absolutely. Why don't I start with the politicians? We usually, Senator Susan Collins has an office in Lewiston and frequently has Bates interns. I know that a lot of Bates students worked for Congressman Jared Golden, who's a Bates alum and veteran who represents, there are only 2 congressional districts in Maine. The first district, which is sort of runs up the coast, and the second district, of which Lewiston is a part, to the west of 95, if you can imagine the map, and then covers the whole big giant county, Aroostook County in Maine. That is represented by Bates graduate Jared Golden, and I know Bates students massively worked on his campaign. What I do not know is specifically whether he has had an intern from Bates. And I think that Bates students have all also worked in other state offices in the summer. We have a robust paid internship program, and if you want to do public service or political work, we raise significant funds each year to fund internships where the entity that's hiring you can't afford to pay. That's under Purposeful Work.
Great, thank you, Clayton. And I'll say, well, certainly not the same in terms of politicians. A number of our students over the years during my time at Bates have interned for a local judge, many lawyers. So there's ample opportunity in that field as much as across different industries here in Lewiston and into Portland. So the questions keep coming in fast and furious, and it's fantastic to see the energy. I think we can certainly stay for at least another 5 minutes and see if we can get a few answered, and then we'll go from there. So there continue to be questions about housing. I'll say quickly, again, be on the lookout upon enrollment come mid-May. You'll get a housing survey from our close friends in residential life. Fill that out openly and honestly so that you get matched well with your roommates. In terms of housing options on campus, we have a number of larger dorms as much as we have some smaller colonial Victorian type homes. But when I say a large dorm, it's nothing like what you might see at a Michigan State or a large public university, wherever you might live. There are a few hundred students that live in our largest dorms on campus, not upwards closer to 1,000. So know that. And our students as first years are oriented in a space that we call a first year center. So you'll have a roommate who's another first year, and then you'll have this first year center, which isn't so much a physical space as it is rather a grouping of students of about 10 to 12 first years who then have a JA, a junior advisor, that oversees you, sort of like an RA at other institutions. We just call them JAs. And so they make sure that you're adjusting well, figuring out the lay of the land, figuring out your social life as much as navigating your academic life, certainly first and foremost, and also have funding from the college to do programming. So there'll be study nights in the dorm as much as you might go apple picking in the fall or go out and do some sort of hot chocolate thing in the winter. So that's how the housing is set up. There were a couple of questions in terms of choosing your roommate. Again, we really try to do our best in matching roommates. If you are siblings, so perhaps twins are in the crowd tonight, maybe on rare occasion exception, that's something that the college would entertain. So please connect with one of us offline or contact the residential life staff and they can help answer that for you. In terms of having a single related to COVID, again, there are limited singles that we have on campus, and that's across all 4 years of our students. But if that's something that's really of great concern to you or you have a lot of questions about, please, again, ask our residential life staff and they can help you think through when students are eligible for those singles. And also, again, in terms of arriving on campus, international students, you likely will also arrive in late August, and athletes, again, to be determined based on what the season might look like. So then here's a good question that Clayton, maybe we could answer together, but what advice do you give to those students who are transitioning from a large public high school to a small liberal arts college such as Bates?
Well, it depends on if your motivation is to enjoy the more smaller classes, sort of closer faculty-student relationships. It's very easy to figure out which are the larger courses and the smaller courses, but I would take a mix. And I would say that a large public high school might be greater than 4,000. Bates is more like 1,800 to 2,000 students. So there's plenty of room to find your friends, the activities you like, etc. But it may be more, it might be a more a freer and more relaxing space to explore. I would, because you're not trying to get into college on the other side of it, you'll be going on to different things. But I would just say we have some large lecture classes in some of the introductory sciences and politics, in economics, but you can quickly find your way to seminars. The first year seminar is usually limited to between 15 and 20 people, and that will be a cohort advising group with that faculty member. So I think the Bates that you find is the Bates that you put together through your choices. And I would just say, try things you haven't tried in high school.
Great question, or great answer, Clayton. So we have, again, a ton of questions. So I might just ask Clayton one or two more, and then hopefully folks can connect with us offline or with one another. But Clayton, what types of communication are there from Bates through the academic year with families of students?
So tons. In COVID, we have communicated very regularly. We have shared with families everything we've sent to students discussing their testing regimens, public health requirements, etc. We hold forums for parents. We have a person in our college advancement office who's in charge of parent engagement, and she works closely with our student affairs team. We do try to emphasize that we want to make sure, sometimes we'll get a communication from a parent that says, my student wants this course and isn't getting in. And then we tend to say, well, please, we get right back to you and say, please have your student see his or her, their advisor. And sometimes we find out the student's desires and the parents' desires are not 100% aligned. We consider parents a super important part of our community. And because of of COVID and the level of uncertainty and anxiety throughout COVID, we have seriously upped the level and quality of communications and regularity of communications. It may fall down a notch from that, I mean, deliberately, but it's robust.
Thank you, Clayton. And then I'll finish on an academic note, and then we'll just say congratulations one more time. We had a student ask about life as a medical student. I think they meant a pre-med student at Bates. So Clayton, if you want to add, and then I can wrap it up.
Sure. Well, life as a pre-med student partly depends on how much you like science and labs. You can major in English or politics and then go on to med school very successfully, but you would need enough science courses if you were going to go directly. We have plenty of students who spend their Bates years not so focused on pre-med and may decide later to go to med school and need to figure out a way to get some of those the more science-heavy courses required for med school later. But if you, and some people, I would say, not a small number of students, a fraction of students come here thinking they want to go to med school, and then they decide that's really not what they're most interested in. So there's no 100% pre-med curriculum. You get to mix and match your course choices in ways that make sense to you and your interests. And it's very possible to have a social science or a humanities. You could be an English major and still complete the requirements for pre-med. It's rigorous, but we have great pre-med advising and are happy to work with you on that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Clayton, for rounding it out with that question. Again, this group, you have completely exhibited why we are so excited about you. Your level of curiosity and engagement is through the roof. If I'm doing my math correctly, over 80 questions, keeping us on our toes. So really, thank you for bringing your energy and showing us your real desire to continue to learn about Bates and learn about one another. I don't know if Clayton's ready to add one more thing.
I just want to, there are a couple questions about short term, and I want to make sure we don't leave that dangling. It is not our intention to remove short term. We actually love short term. It allows all sorts of experimentation. It gives you guys the chance to focus intensively for 1 month, either on something very different that you're interested in. We have practitioner taught courses in short terms. You can be in an a cappella group and then take music production and mixing in short term if that course is offered that year. We do a lot of working on the actual regular curriculum through courses taught by faculty with a small group of students in short term to redesign courses that are going to be taught in the regular term. And it's a very valued part of the Bates tradition. This year, because of the news that was coming in about the surges going from Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's, and in order to have short term this year, we would have had to have students back on January 8th. That was the heart of the second surge. And so we felt this year, I mean, we made the difficult decision to eliminate short term for 2 years in a row so that we could get, let's call it the entree, the full semester with our students on campus, not have them start remotely because they couldn't get back from traveling, et cetera. But short term will be back, and we certainly hope and expect that it'll be back next year.
Excellent. Thank you, Clayton. Again, thank you all for being with us today, for making this such a fantastic program, for hopefully making it feel like as much of a conversation as it possibly could be. We're really eager to be with you all over the next 6 weeks. So please continue to join us for our many, many programs. You can find them all and sign up for them all on the Den. It's a great way for you to continue to learn about the college, but also connect with each other and connect with community members who are here currently. Stay in touch with any of us via email. You'll find all of the the admission staff, many of the, well, all of the financial aid staff online, and then many faculty staff from across the college on the Den as well. So contact us. Any and all questions are welcome, and we're just eager to connect with you. So again, congratulations. Welcome, hopefully fully, to the Bates class of 2025. We're really eager to have all of you on campus in late August, early September. So enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.